Yeah, I know.
Erica, can you hear us?
I couldn't do it. I can't.
I'm just a patient person.
I'm too
Yes, I
much
can.
to the point.
Okay.
Until I get to a certain point, then,
Yeah. No, I don't blame
I'm hearing everybody though. There we go.
I'll mute us. Okay.
she's like, what?
Hey, Erica,
Yes.
there is going to be a portion where Greg Jarrett is going to need to share his screen. He's going to hop on his laptop, but just to give you a heads up that he's going to have controls to be able to do that eventually.
Yeah, usually in Zoom, they don't actually need anything. You can just go ahead and do it.
Nice. Okay.
I know. Anarchy.
All right, thanks. The meeting, just join the meeting.
We don't want to spend more hours with you.
Yeah, well, yeah, Nancy was saying you guys had them on.
Yes.
All right. It's snow out here.
Those agendas, man, that like every topic is something completely different.
Oh, yeah.
Are you steering gonna be here?
Yeah.
Roller coaster.
No, I
Just a minute and a steel sheet.
I like it when I.
We can put 3 up here. No problem.
Yeah, family zones, yeah.
Oh.
What? You brought the owl, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
And you use the owl before that?
Yours a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It comes in handy, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I don't want one. I've got a nice little owl that doesn't see you.
Actually, I was gonna say, is that strictly microphone?
Yeah, it's for audio, but
Does it pick up really well from back here as well? It looks like it's
Yeah,
microphone on steroids, so.
yeah, no, it does. It.
Yeah, well, the technology is certainly advanced over the last couple of years.
I'm no longer seeing the camera for the owl. Is that intentional? Ah,
We bumped something.
brother.
Yeah, it's advanced so much that you have to send a person weekly to operate. Ain't no heck I'd be doing it.
We have had the opportunity, of course, to present with all the city councils over the last few weeks to compare technology. And I have to say that hands down, Albany City Council has the best technology.
Well, they have the best IT
Erica,
department.
do you need to let people in?
Yeah.
Yeah. it's two-
Sorry,
one
what?
You need to let people into the
that
meeting?
Started the IT department. in Albany.
Apparently, yeah. I don't know why it was set up that way, but
Greg's waiting.
yeah, I'm letting him in.
Company
Thank
was,
you.
if it was Apple or if it was, well, I think it was Apple, but he was the head director of Apple making millions and he was shooting. So he went to Albany.
Wow.
And now he works for the state of Florida. But he started and they're just their IT guys. Super.
Yeah, they had, you know, the built-in, iPad units and all of the materials just come up. Computers, and connectivity or anything else, and all the sound is just
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
hardwired in.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
nice.
it was pretty slick, I have to say.
I like ours the best because none of this is.
You just plug it in and it
Yeah,
works.
and this just started. This wasn't even here. It was like, yeah, but got an iPad and it worked really well when I write.
I think Commissioner that would be a little bit tight on this. Commission or something.
So it's voices and everything.
Well, kind of. We have a race Sunday and then we have a lot of northern. California. So, yeah, I mean, he's not riding every day, but he'll race next weekend. So. Like this week, we're juggling wrestling and press.
Oh, wow.
So I coach the wrestling. Saturday we wrestle, Sunday we race. Yeah, this gets really busy for me for the next couple months.
So we get a Northern California homeowners to take.
Well, when we just go to like Marysville and stuff, it's only like 10 hours there and then back, but you do that, you leave on Friday and you come back Sunday.
Yeah.
So it's a lot to do. on weekends, but, yeah, we'll do that 3 or 4 times. And then SoCal in December, we'll go down to SoCal for 2 weeks straight. It's the national down there.
Is that down in San Diego or LA?
It's by San Diego. It's what's the closest place to it? San Diego's like 45 minutes west of where we live. So yeah, we're down that west. So
You put on the miles.
yeah, oh, yeah. Definitely doing that.
He's coming, but
But it's fun. I mean, I enjoy it.
Do it while you can, Pat. Do it while you can.
the traffic is.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, he's 13, my daughter's 15, so it goes quick. So, we don't be sitting around, going, what do I do?
I have. Oh. Yeah.
No,
was gonna say,
Sorry.
I was thinking the same thing.
They'll back that up too. I'll find other adventures, but.
Karen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Karen, is it easier for you to sit next to Greg or over on this side? I'll try and push back. a little
Well-
Because my big head is here.
Every time we've ever done this. No, I'm just kidding. It's new every time.
That's kind of it.
This is perfect. No, not.
Commissioner Warren.
Actually, I was just seeing if he had texted me.
He's probably driving.
Yeah.
He was trying to do one last thing before he left office.
Somebody's coming in. Right now.
There it is.
There we go.
Hey, Pat.
Two agendas, just because. Stereo.
Oh, I can start by just welcoming everybody. Thank you for coming to Adair. This is a big deal for us. But I'm not going to be doing a lot of the talking. I'll let Greg and Pat. But I will help with answering any questions. Anything that I can't think of you guys have. But they're just going to go through kind of the process. We'll do roll call there in a sec, but we're just going to go through the process, kind of what the UGB looks like, the process of it. Kind of go through the addendum because that's really the comments we had from the public. And I know Pat and Greg are going to talk a lot about about the findings page. Personally, I'm not as worried about that as long as my staff tells me we've got it covered. I'm more interested in the issues at hand and having you guys try and go through and look at data from 86 pages. So thanks again for coming out. And yeah, Greg, I'll let you kind of Darren take over. And get started.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks for hosting us. We have a presentation prepared and time for questions at the end. Pat Deppa is online. Darren and myself are here. But anything formal you need to do to get started officially, feel free to.
As a work session, I don't even think we need to do anything.
Very good. Just make sure we're following protocols. And I need a pen. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we can do that. Let's break do some introductions, go around there and I don't think you know everybody. So,
Not yet.
Greg, when you start.
All right, so I'm Greg Verrett. I'm the Deputy Director of Benton County Community Development Department and the main staff planner for the county on this UGB.
Good evening, Darren Nichols, Community Development Director for Benton County. Nice to meet you.
Good afternoon, Joe Kirby, Benton County Administrator, and report to the Board of Commissioners and I'm responsible for the day-to-day oversight of county operations.
So there.
Dawson officer.
Zan, your commissioner.
It's Wise, Commissioner, Chair of the Board of Commissioners.
And Pat Deppa will be giving some of this presentation.
Hey, everybody, I'm Pat. So I apologize for not being there. I'm Benton County planner contracted to the city of Adair. Can you hear me?
Thanks, Pat.
Okay.
And we have a few other folks online if you'd like to introduce yourself. Oh, can't hear you.
Ron Weigel.
Thank you, Ron. Peggy?
Sure.
Sorry, Peggy Lynch, Benton County citizen and Adair neighbor.
Thank you, Peggy.
Erica Milo, board recorder.
Good. Right, I think that's everybody. All right, well, then we'll start with a slideshow. Assuming that my share screen process works. There we go. All right. So I will do most of the slides, but Darren's going to jump in at a few places. Pat, feel free to add as you see fit. So this is a work session to discuss the Adair Village Urban Growth Boundary Amendment proposal. And as a work session, just want to remind folks, we're going to be having a public hearing December 6th. So we can discuss excuse me. We can answer questions, we can discuss the background, but we should avoid deliberations until the public hearing has occurred and you've heard from them. What I want to accomplish today is give you an overview of the process, the basics about urban growth boundaries, how they operate, the process of amending an urban growth boundary, a little bit of the specifics about the proposal here in Adair Village, and some of the broad planning considerations that have been discussed so far, either at the Planning Commission work session or among staff, and then have time for questions from you all. So I don't have control of that. Eric, I don't know if you're able to move the, are we running? Who's running the meeting? Are we able? Are you able to-
Greg, you should be able to with try your arrow keys.
The other computer.
Yep.
We figured it out. Thank you. We've got lots of computers running here. Okay, so this is a joint legislative hearings process that we're engaged in. City of Adair Village, Benton County, jointly considering whether and how to amend the urban growth boundary. UGB amendment is about a number of things, really. It's about helping a given city to develop into a more complete and livable community. And we've all been working on that for years. It's about addressing regional issues like housing, transportation, other needs, about how the city fits into that region. It's about reducing sprawl, improving efficiencies, and a lot of other things. Darren, would you like to take those ellipses and elaborate?
Sure. Well, so, this is an interesting moment, and the urban growth boundary decision is a lot of work, as Pat can attest. It also requires a lot of policy assumptions, presumptions about the future, which is really hard to do. And so I want to start by just saying thanks for the work that's been done, and especially the level of coordination and cooperation. Adair Village is looking into its future in a way that is difficult. There's a lot of unknowns, and yet facing some needs in helping Benton County to address a portion of regional housing need that I think we all know is acute, if not critical. And so I wanted to take just a moment to talk about what an urban growth boundary amendment really is. So first of all, not to lose sight of the fact that we have a recommendation from the Benton County Planning Commission and from the Adair Village Planning Commission to approve the amendment that's before you. So the task at hand is to consider those recommendations. But it feels to me like we would be remiss if we didn't take a moment to really think about this decision in the context of what Benton County and frankly the Mid-Willamette Valley are facing, because this is a rare opportunity to think about land supply and infrastructure needs and the long-term growth of our overall community, how we connect the several communities that are here, North Albany, Adair Village, Kings Valley, Lewisburg, Corvallis, Philomath. There's a lot at stake. This is a piece of it, but it's a piece of a bigger kind of fabric of the future of Benton County. And so we just wanted to try to put that in context a little bit. You probably know that the state of Oregon has been thinking about housing needs on a statewide basis. The last numbers that I've seen is that Oregon is short roughly 110,000 housing units across the state. Benton County right now is short around 5,000 housing units. And unless we make some changes to our current growth patterns within the next 20 years, we could be short 15,000 just in Benton County. In Benton and Lynn, that number grows to like 25,000 in the next 20 years. So that's housing units that we don't have that people need to have a place to live. And we see this play out in different ways in our community. Obviously, the cost of housing in Benton County is very high. The cost of housing in Corvallis is some of the highest in the state of Oregon. We see families living in less than ideal conditions, RVs being one option, sometimes in tents. People are finding ways to exist in our community that aren't always safe or pleasant. I think as we watch the temperatures drop over the next couple of weeks, it's very much kind of top of mind that not everyone has a safe, comfortable place to live. And so these are big things that our communities are facing. I just wanted to put that in context a little bit, because when Adair Village looks into its future, it in part is helping all of us look into our collective future. It's addressing a piece of that need, but it's not addressing all of that need. I think Pat Hare and Pat Deppa have been wrestling with how to get enough land to meet the needs of your future. Also make sure that you have the utilities to meet that future growth potential. And in some ways trying to forecast who it is that's going to need a place to live and want to live in Adair Village. And so I'm not telling you things that you know, but I think it's really important that we all keep the big picture in mind while we also look at the specifics of this particular fact pattern and make important next steps for Adair Village's future. Oregon's planning program hinges almost the singular kind of element that defines our planning program is the urban growth boundary. And the reason that that's so important is that it forces an important conversation about how much land is needed for what types of uses and over what time frame. And it's because it forces that kind of hard thought process. It forces us to think about long-term efficiencies, the cost of utilities and services, our ability to provide things like schools and parks, and which we'll talk about a little bit later, and make sure that that's all connected with a transportation system that meets the needs, not just of cars, but also of pedestrians, bicycles, and segways, and whatever else we're riding these days. So there's a lot in this, and I didn't want to distract us from the task at hand, which is really to consider the recommendations. But I did want to just take a minute to note that there's a lot here from a planning standpoint that we should take a moment to consider. And we're here to help answer those questions if you have them. Last but not least, then I would just say that the urban growth boundary amendment is only step one. There's a lot more work that has to be done to put in infrastructure, actually build the homes, connect those in a meaningful way. If it's possible, find a place for a school somewhere along the path. And there's a lot more work that needs to be done. This is just kind of step one. And if there are ways that we can help support those next steps, we want to find a way to do that too. And I think this is where the county-city partnership could be really advantageous for the future of your city as you grow. And so I just want to make sure that we're here and available to you and a resource. So, thank you.
Question, when you say that Benton County is short 5,000 housing units, is that all of Benton County, including incorporated areas?
That's correct. Yeah, that's a regional, across the county. Thank you.
That's based on the regional housing needs analyses that were done by LCDC.
Yeah.
Now being called the Oregon Housing Needs
Yeah, it
Analysis
is now.
by LCDC.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same.
but that's right.
Right, so this is a joint process, as we've discussed. City of Adair Village is responsible within its urban growth boundary for long-range planning for the city and to implement the vision of their comprehensive plan. They meet their decision. City's decision here on the UGB proposal is a comprehensive plan map amendment to adopt the new urban growth boundary. And then eventually, as Darren alluded to, further decisions about annexation, rezoning, development review, subdivision, etc. Benton County's role in this process is, so we're responsible for managing the land use that occurs between cities, outside of city limits, but between cities, and also for regional coordination. So broader community needs, coordinating efforts on housing, transportation, etc. We don't tend to see a lot of high intensity development in the county, some, but as important or more important is our role between those places that do have that type of development between the cities, connecting and coordinating. The county's role specifically on this urban growth boundary proposal is to consider amending the comprehensive plan map to adopt a new urban growth boundary and a zoning map amendment. That would change the zoning of these two properties that are in question from exclusive farm use zoning to a residential zone. In this case, it would be an urban residential zone with a very high minimum parcel size. So it's essentially a holding zone. Recognizes that it's going to be residentially zoned and developed, but that it's not going to be developed until it's annexed. So it's a holding zone until it gets annexed, and then the city zone is applied.
Those are technically two separate decisions.
Correct. All right, I wanted to give you an overview of kind of the process and how it's flowed so far. So several months ago, Board of Commissioners, we discussed this, and you initiated the legislative process on the county side. City Council, I don't know the timing, but I know you've been engaged in this planning process for quite a while. That directed staff to make preparations, and we held a joint work session of the two planning commissions. It's actually two joint work sessions of the two planning commissions and then a public hearing. Each of those planning commissions then voted and made a recommendation to you two bodies, the governing bodies. We're having a joint work session. We'll have a joint hearing on the 6th of December. And then the city and the county will respectively make independent decisions as a result of that public hearing. Feeding into that, we've had public input. We had a couple of open houses. We've had public testimony at the Planning Commission. We've had public testimony both in written and oral form at the Board of Commissioners and City Council hearing. And that public input has informed our staff report. Getting that information to you next. More specifically about public engagement, we had Pat Depa attended some farmers markets early on in this process in the summer, and the open house and work sessions. We do notification through the newspaper. We mail notice directly to property owners within the vicinity of the subject properties that are for consideration. And then at the planning commissions, we had written testimony and oral testimony, both taken. And a number of members of the public participated in either or both of those formal ways. And I expect that you'll have some public testimony, both oral and written. At the public hearing. Any questions on the process to date?
Can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about the public engagement and how many people attended those respective opportunities?
Sure. So the farmers markets, I don't know, Pat Depa did that, and he had interactions with a few folks. The open house meetings were pretty low attendance, just a few folks actually. The work sessions, again, we had just a few folks attend, and then it was really at the public hearing that we had a number of people. Would say 20, 25 people attend, I guess. And a few others submitted testimony, but didn't.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, urban growth boundaries, and I'm sorry, I know you know some of these things, but I want to provide this level a basis of information as we can for everybody. So each city in Oregon has an urban growth boundary. That's a key tenet, as Darren mentioned, of the Oregon planning program. Statewide planning. Those UGBs are jointly established by the city and its respective county. So back in the day when they were originally established, pretty involved process. The concept of an urban growth boundary is that urban development is limited to occurring within urban growth boundaries. Once land is inside an urban growth boundary, it's eligible for annexation into the city. Once it's in a city, city zoning applies. Anyway, inside an urban growth boundary, you have access to higher density zoning, access to urban sewer, municipal sewer service. Those are two key elements. State law prohibits the extension of sewer outside of urban growth boundaries, except in rare exceptions. Otherwise, outside of urban growth boundaries, farm and forest zoning typically is the typical occurrence to rule, and that limits development. And so you end up with higher density occurring inside urban growth boundaries and lower density outside. That promotes efficiency in the use of the land and the extension of infrastructure. So not extending sewer, water, city streets, etc. And also preserves farmland and forest land for breaking up pockets of urban in the midst of the farmland and forest. The urban growth boundary designates where a city is expecting to grow over the next 20 years. And that 20-year supply of land, at the time you establish an urban growth boundary, you need to do that for all categories of land use. So housing, employment lands, other urban uses. At the time of amending an urban growth boundary, you don't necessarily have to look at all of the various types of land uses. You can focus on just a single category, and that's what's being considered here, is just really needed housing. It's the focus of this urban growth boundary. Doesn't mean we can't and shouldn't, in fact, we should think about and talk about other potential land uses. But the driving impetus for these two particular properties has been a focus on. As an overview of Adair Village's urban growth boundary situation, so there's been an analysis done, and you'll get, I think City Council maybe already has this documentation. We'll be getting board commissioners the full findings documents and background information, the buildable lands inventory and so on. But I didn't want to bog you down with that yet. But in overview, so the city of Adair Village has insufficient land right now for that 20-year supply. So in order to meet the projected 20-year demand for residential development, the buildable lands inventory indicates there's insufficient. State law essentially requires that that be corrected. So that deficiency needs to be corrected. To do so, Adair Village and the Board of County Commissioners are considering an urban growth boundary expansion of about 50 acres, primarily towards construction of new homes. Thanks to the infrastructure work that the city has done, city sewer and water are available to accommodate that expansion. And the city has been working on this process for a while. And it's it's a culmination of a multi-year effort in a variety of fronts. An urban growth boundary amendment, as we're considering, is governed by both state and local rules. So statewide planning goal 14 dealing with urbanization, and then a variety of administrative rules at the state level. And then at the local level, comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance or land use development. Those all apply to this type of decision. The state rules kind of fall into two main steps. The first is determining, so once you've evaluated, two steps. Determine whether there's a need to add land to the urban growth boundary, and if so, which land. So population projections that are produced by the Population Research Center from Florida State University are the basis of that determination. in any city statewide now. That system has been set up to work statewide. And then those population projections are worked into what's called the Buildable Lands Inventory, BLI. And in this case, that was produced by a consultant, Dowell, a consultant firm for the Adair Village situation. And as I said, that identified a deficiency in the availability of land. So then the second step is identifying which land to add, and that's done through a locational analysis that's spelled out in the administrative rules. The land need. This table summarizes the land need that was identified in the buildable lands inventory. There's a lot of numbers on there. You don't necessarily have to forth over all of them, but essentially, there's a there. Vacant acres within the existing urban growth boundary of about 52 acres. But those are not all readily available. There are constraints on them. And so taking those constraints into consideration, sorry, my cursor is not really showing up very well, but 38 to 47 acres seem to be available for residential development. About 65 acres seem to be needed for the 20-year demand. And so the deficit in strict hard defined numbers is between 17 and 27. That's acres. That is just by the calculations. That's not factoring in flexibility or buffer or assumptions being off or those types of things. And so through planning commissions reviewed this information and came to the conclusion that the proposal for 50 acres to be brought into the urban growth boundary was reasonable flexibility to meet this need. So they didn't want to hold the city to exactly meeting these acreage. Build in a factor of safety.
So Greg, that's probably a good point to just kind of stop for a minute. First of all, Pat, how many acres are in Adair Village currently?
How many for the whole city?
Yeah,
I don't know exactly.
it's a few hundred.
Yeah, it is.
So we're talking about, on the whole, pretty small percentage.
Oh, yeah.
But also, this also kind of illustrates a couple things about the state law that I think are important. One is, this is not an unreasonably precise math problem, even though we've laid it out that way. It's good to kind of track in a mathematical formula, but really, these are the kinds of hard decisions that a city has to look at based on its context and situation. So here you've got.
So, yeah, I could help you out with
Yeah.
this. So, yeah, this was a little controversial thing in the planning commission. And it will be with citizens because they come up and say, hey, the numbers don't show this. Well, the factor that Greg was talking about is very true. DLCD, just so you know, has also approved our numbers because you have wetlands. Then you have the real city situations that like I don't know. And so there's a whole nother section that I wrote with our engineers that shows 10 acres that's in the north part of our town that you would have to take 2 houses out. You'd have to run infrastructure that doesn't exist to a 4-acre plot. No one's ever going to build that. So we wrote all that out. We proved all that through the findings. So there's all these other factors that go into this. And what the LCD, I worked 2 years with them to do this. They kept telling me is you need to write them, because you're the only one that's going to know that extra things about your city. They're just going to look at, you have this many acres of buildable land. Why are you looking for more land? So those factors, and you're going to see some of those things come up. And that's something I hope you give to them is the amendment as well, because that would give them kind of everything that was an issue with the first process, And so that's what I did to our councils. I gave them basically all the comments that were made through this process, because you're going to hear the exact same ones. And so you had a month to think about them and even ask some of the staff some of these questions, because there was a big misconception in the last process with numbers, especially when you start looking at density. Well, the state has requirements for cities of 50,000, 25,000, 10,000, and under 5,000. And under 5,000, we don't have to meet, it's like a quarter of those requirements. Like for the densities in a 50,000 city, you have to go with certain numbers by PSU. We do not have to do that here. So that meaning we don't have to have high rises and sky rises like in Portland would have to. So that's why those are different. So anyway, just these, I think this would be a good thing to kind of explain some of that, what we're talking about. But yeah, I think what Greg said is it's a factor of, knowing that 50 acres is not going to equal 50 acres of house. We have wetlands. We're also going to have buffers, and now you have new storm drain requirements, or we have detention ponds. But they keep telling us get denser, but we got to do even more of this kind of stuff. So it really won't come to that. You'll be looking at probably 25 acres of buildable land. So you apply those factors.
And how many other cities in Oregon are converting a former military base into a fully functional city?
And that was one of the
Right.
reasons DLCD worked with me so much on this. Is because, yeah, this hasn't been done. Yeah, so thanks.
So based on the fact that there is a need, there's a deficit of available land for the 20-year demand, the locational analysis then comes into play. Which land should be added to the urban growth? The analysis looked at 7 different sub areas. Of those, the proposed property 1 and property 2 best meet the goal 14 criteria for UGB expansion, and they have the lowest overall infrastructure.
So can I jump in into, it's really simple. I know this is a simple analysis. You've got 99, ODOT said no. You've got E.E. Wilson, doubt we're gonna put houses there. You have the railroad tracks and the biggest prime farming areas almost in Benton County. Not happening. There's one way we can go, and one. And it's not, we have this huge analysis saying that. And it's ridiculous because there's one way we can go. And so I just feel like that doesn't need to be paraded because we got a lot of questions about that last time. It's like pretty simple if you just put those 3 factors in and say, that's the truth.
Not a lot of options. It's true. So the two, this map behind, yeah, this in here too, shows, kind of illustrates what Pat was talking about. Cornelius property is property 1. Weigel property is property 2, which I'll show in just a second.
The Cornelius property was really done because we planned our city that way. So Cornelius developed the northern part of town. And if you see that map back there, that was the 2009 map, which already had this land planned. We had already done this process and the county shortened it in that process to that weird wiggly describing thing. And so I just want to point this out because Cornelius property, we dead into the road because it was part of his property when he built the other. So we dead into the road with all the infrastructure there. That's the only reason that piece is there. We won't be looking to go anywhere else up there. It's just this guy had this one piece that's not usable now. It's just blackberries. And it was because it's excluded.
So back up a second. So this is that property, the Cornelius property, property 1, currently zoned EFU. It's got a conservation easement on about 7 acres, the southern part of it, and the part that could be developed is about 5 acres.
And we leave it right here. This is also really important to us because this is always, this will not go away. The conservation easement. So that's protected wetlands. This is also where the reason we want to bring this into the city as well, the conservation easement, is this landowner told us if we do this, we can have our road and our path going into the Benton County Park, which is super important in our trails plan. Because if you look at our other maps, our citizens have almost 1.5 miles from that development to get to Benton County Park, where it's literally 100 yards away from their homes. So this is real important for our trails plan as well.
And this has been a desirable path for the north folks that live in the north area there to the park for their kids, and it's been talked about for a long time. So yeah, they would be really happy about
Property 2 is the area to the south, well, on 3 sides really of this existing development. So it's here. Currently zoned exclusive farm use. Oops. It was part of the urban growth boundary expansion proposal back in 2006.
Well, it started in 7, but went to 2009.
And we got scaled back through that process. So this would bring in the rest of that property, and there's about 5 acres of it that are floodplain that would not be developed. Again, this is those 2 properties in context. And zoning, also just for reference and context.
Small.
Yeah.
They're incremental.
I mean, the font.
Oh, the font, sorry about that. Yeah, well, we can zoom in on anything you have questions.
Because the property's small.
Avoid deliberation.
Yeah. So we talked about the state criteria around demonstrating need and then the locational analysis. Again, there are also local criteria, comprehensive plans, and the development code. Those are all addressed in the staff report and the extensive findings document that you'll receive a copy of. The planning commission recommended approval. City planning commission also recommended approval. We will provide more details about planning commission's deliberations in our staff report, but I just wanted you to. This is the punchline. Planning commission recommended approval. There were also throughout the process, and especially at the planning commission, a number of questions or topics have come up, and this gets back to what Darren was describing at the outset. Urban growth boundary amendments are infrequent. They are an opportunity to take a look at what's happening, look at how a city is developing, expanding, how the region is operating, functioning in relation to that, and consider, how we as city and broader county want to see the future. And there were a number of topics that were discussed. I wanted to go through some of those with you so that you can hear about them and think about them, because you'll probably hear about them at the public hearing. So, small font, apologies.
Like a manage.
And we'll provide these slides to all of you. PowerPoint handout. So a few considerations that came up were around housing, regional growth, and the housing needs analysis. As Darren mentioned, and we all know, there's a limited supply of housing in the region, especially housing that's attainable to workers in our area. At 5,000 units here locally, more than 100,000 units statewide. That's really so. At the same time, we have limited supply. We've got growth happening. It's a very desirable location, a lot of amenities, and given that potential for growth, the shortfall in needed housing could reach 45,000. Bounded by 24. Adair Village's urban growth boundary amendment helps. That it's not going to solve it by itself, obviously, and we shouldn't be expecting that to continue to be a challenge.
Greg? Sorry to interject for a moment, but your voice is dropping out periodically. If you can just a reminder to try to bring your volume up a little.
Thanks, Erica. Appreciate that. The smaller the font, the quieter I talk. And then, as was mentioned, the housing needs analysis, Oregon housing needs analysis. Yeah, the current system of planning for housing in Oregon chronically underestimates housing need, especially for lower income households, and does not enforce the responsibilities of local governments to comprehensively address housing need, and perpetuates geographic patterns of racial and economic segregation, exclusion, and inequity. We have a lot to address as a state.
So this is an interesting kind of conundrum, I think, not to pick on Adair Village. Smaller communities don't have to do the full set of analysis. And so they haven't done that, and it's fine. You're not required by law. But one thing that we don't have, and I think, is in some ways, it's a bit of an impediment to accurately planning for the future. We don't have a housing needs analysis. So while we know the number of units that Adair Village needs, we don't really know what type for sure. And we also don't know, the companion piece would be the economic opportunities analysis. I don't think we have a good sense for what kind of job possibilities or potential there could be here, how much demand there is for a fully functional downtown. There's a lot of kind of related pieces that Benton County could help with going forward. I just want to kind of plant that seed that this is one of those areas where we could partner to help bolster the ability of Adair Village and other communities to plan for the future. If we want to. A lot of work's been done, a lot more work could be done. That's
I mean, there's, but to me, the housing needs analysis, when I build 200 homes in 2 years, everyone sells in 2 years, and 70% of the population is Corvallis. I don't really need a housing needs analysis to tell me 200 homes are gonna fill. I'm sorry, that's me.
Yeah.
That's just for that, but for supply of jobs in a downtown, that's different for sure. And looking at those opportunities, but that's one thing I just wanted to say, when you look at this, is we're not gonna solve Corvallis and Benton County's housing needs problem, but we know that we need a threshold of a population to sustain businesses. And I do know that, that's my background. And so that's what we're trying to do. Yeah, and in the meantime, it will help. Literally, I tracked where people came when they bought our homes, and most of them were from Corvallis, needing a house. Same house here sold 100,000 more in Corvallis. You could live just as close to the hospitals, to shopping in Adair, and have $100,000 less house that was brand new and nicer than what you would have in Corvallis. And we actually got quite a few people around college as well. But to me, that shows the need. The demand is there. We know that. With this slide, we know that demand is there. But Adair, I guess I would just say, Adair has planned. I mean, for ever since 12 years I've been working on it, 20 years they've been preparing for a downtown. That study, we've had professionals do a downtown development. We did do all the economic studies. That was done in 2009. And we have all these documents that we've done over and over. We've updated all of our development codes and our design standards and everything. We've updated to get to where we are now. And I'm actually thankful that Horton didn't do all of this for the city in 2009. I'm really glad that fell through because we weren't ready. Our infrastructure was failing. We had none of this stuff updated. And we had this big developer pushing it down our throats. We got lucky because now we're in a different place. We learned what we need to prepare and how to prepare for this. And I think that's what's really important for the commissioners is really just your assurance that to know that Adair Village has done this homework. That what you're being told, that what you're being recommended by your staff and by us is that we are going to take these things into consideration as we move forward through the building process and the rest of these next steps. And, I know a lot of the cities around us, and over the 12 years I've been in Adair, we have proven that time and time again to the county and to everyone else, to DLCD, and with this report. And so, while I think these things are important, I don't think that's the picture I'm trying to sell, is I guess what I want to say as we go through this process. Thanks for letting me go on a little bit.
Well, and just to touch on that just for a moment, a lot of years looking at this, the original visioning and SHREP process produced input from the community, which has been subsequently added to in recent years, supporting that same vision. Certain amenities aren't possible or viable until you have a certain population, and folks want to feel in Adair Village, kind of the general sentiment, even from the newer areas, more of a, it's hard to explain, a sense of identity and relationship to a community that has those amenities. So
Yeah,
I think that's a factor that plays into it.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people that moved into the new section thought they were moving in Corvallis. You know, and now they're like, hey, wait a second, we can't even get up here. Because that's another part of this. You're gonna hear a lot about transportation. And one of, I think, our biggest, one of the things we've done that proves that we're serious and we're taking this very seriously is that Sandy and Christian were built 4 years ago. They still want to. They have a developer to build. The only reason they aren't is because we won't let them, because they won't put this road, they put a baseball field in illegally on the property line, which does not allow for a road to go from the new section to our downtown. I just got an email saying they're moving baseball field. It only took 4 years, but Adair could have used those homes. We could have allowed that to happen. I mean, I wanted it to, but we couldn't, because we knew that if we allowed that, we would not have proper flow of transportation and access to our downtown. So again, I think that's just a great example. When you hear about transportation and 99 and all that, I'm not the transportation professional, but I'll be working with the one that is from ODOT. And so I just, when I hear some of these issues that get brought up, that's not for me to make the decision. That's for me to make sure that I have the right people working on that. And that goes back to what we're saying. And Adair has proven that we will do that. And there's steps for that. In annexation, you work with ODOT. In development, you work with ODOT. They don't just say, okay, go build 500 homes. You know, wetlands, we do delineations. Adair actually protects our wetlands. We have a code for that. And we do wetland delineations, and we make sure we don't impact the wetlands. Because these are the things that people get excited about, but realize later that that's how you actually, you know, we have a safety issue on one of our streets going to the Cornelius property. We had the fire department say the only way to fix this is by doing a development and putting a roundabout in. We're gonna ensure that happens, you know, instead of people saying, we can't do this because they haven't done that. It's no, these are the steps that trigger those right organizations to take the proper necessary steps. So you're gonna hear a lot of that, you know, as we, especially in the public hearing, but I think it's important to keep in mind that we will be going through this and with the county. I mean, the annexation with the county and our planner now works with for the county. You know, we did these things so that we had that information, so that we didn't do something and go, hey, you built a baseball field, sorry. You know, but that's, I mean, I can give you examples of Monroe doing it to the county. I can give examples of other cities doing it to the county where we have not. And this new relationship with our planner was one of the big reasons I did that, is I kept seeing that happen. The city would do something, and then the county would be like, oh, you couldn't do that, or you needed to do this. And so this is a good way for us to coordinate as we move through these processes. So.
When you say, sorry, when you said this isn't what I'm selling, could you just clarify what you're referencing?
I'm not trying to sell affordable housing. I'm not trying to sell fixing the county's housing needs. I'm trying to sell a community that wants to establish themselves with a downtown and to feel like they're part of something other than a bedroom community. That's what I was asked to do. I feel like we're doing an amazing job of doing that.
Thank you.
So follow up to that, you mentioned going there to the size that can support local businesses.
Yeah, you know, so we're looking towards 3,000 as a population to really sustain some of the local businesses and stuff. Really, that's from my background and my education and just the situation and the factors. If you're in a smaller community that's, let's say, 50 miles from Corvallis, you can sustain businesses a lot easier. Because everybody in the town is going to go to that place instead of drive. We have Albany, Corvallis, and all these other places. So to sustain those businesses, we need a higher population than some of those other smaller states.
What's your current population?
It's 1485.
Yeah. So basically twice as many.
Yeah, twice. Yeah.
And we're fairly well, as was mentioned earlier, landlocked. I mean, but, and beyond that sort of boundary or restriction, the community itself, this visioning and SHREP process I was referring to earlier, members of the community themselves aren't looking for a lot of growth. They're looking for enough growth to support the amenities that we're kind of indirectly referencing. And you know, so it all kind of works.
Yeah, definitely.
to
All plays a
meet
part.
meet everybody's goals.
There is underway, we own the property over here. That would be the downtown area. This is gonna be a park over here. Walking path on the fountain for kids and a retaining walls, and the traffic noise. Pavilion over the pad up there, the barbecue, interpretive centers. Getting geared up to go.
Yeah, I think some of you definitely been involved. I mean,
Yeah.
The years we've spent just acquiring the downtown property. And the city spent a lot of money. We bought the fourplex when it came up for sale. And worked with the county for years to acquire the property. Then we just spent, we found out we just bought the property from the federal government. So we spent quite a bit of money doing that. And we have to wait a couple of years for we can't make money off the property for 2 years after that sale. Meaning I can't sell it for over what I paid for it, and I can't make anything. So we gotta wait 2 years, but that allows us to work on these other projects and to get to a point to do it. But we have developers interested. I mean, I've already talked to several that are very interested and want to be a part of this. So it's not just something we're dreaming of. It's something we're making happen. So that's kind of what I was trying to say, Pat. It's like, because this is important, but when people come in and I hear it and they're like, oh, where's your affordable housing? Where's, how are you meeting this? It's like, no, we're a piece of that. But what we're trying to do is what I just explained.
We don't want to discount the ancillary benefit.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. But I'm never gonna win if I'm trying to say I'm doing this. Where I'm providing affordable housing, because right now, really, that's what the market can bear. When you do SDC credits, things like that, the developer makes more money, and I'm sorry, in a population of our size, we don't have the services for low-income housing. And again, that goes against every planning document I've ever seen or ever read, to put people that need services away from services. We don't have any. But once you get a population sustained that has a higher medium, then you can start developing those services. And so we want to get to that because we want to have people that can afford to live here and work here and, and play, because we have tons of place for that already. So it's just, I guess I was reading this addendum as to, they were talking about this, and the addendum has some of these complaints. And so that's why I got excited, because it was like, oh, wait here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but yes, we definitely, want to be good partners, and we want to be able to travel to Corvallis safely. And, I don't live in it there. I have to go out 20 and that is, dangerous. So we're thinking about all these things in the process.
I think so much of it is chicken and egg.
Yes.
And it's just a starting point.
Yeah, I actually said that in the planning meeting.
It's not linear.
No.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, when you're in a veteran community, the number one stated desire of the residents is to have the amenities such that we build a downtown area so that they can rub shoulders. It's amazing. People live next to each other, but they want to have places they can go to interact close to them.
Right.
And that's, we don't have that. So, but you have to have enough growth to make that feasible. So.
Yeah, so again, we wanted to bring this up as for just this purpose, for the conversation, the discussion, and the context within which these decisions are being made. To the point that's just been discussed, right? Urban growth boundary expansion and a more complete community. We've been over a lot of this already.
Yeah, just one thing there is that's the thing too, is we've met with all of these people, with every player involved, OSU, the school district that I had 2 different meetings with. Anybody that can be impacted with this, I feel like we've reached out and tried to meet with. I think it's important for everybody to know. And we are looking at where a school site would be. And a school wouldn't be triggered until my next UGB, just so you know. But we are looking at where we could place it. We do have places that are in our key downtown areas that a school could go. They don't need to take up this residential.
Yeah, the planning for a future elementary school, just like Pat described, it's not something that's needed to happen as part of this urban growth boundary expansion. But it was interesting how Corvallis School District identified that eventually there is going to be a need. And so as planners, we start thinking about, okay, well, we should be planning for that, not necessarily designating a specific site at this moment, but need to be thinking about the options. And because if we wait too long, it could be pushed to the fringes, and then that doesn't serve the community as well.
And that school would serve all of Benton. It would be Benton County. It would be all the areas around it. To school up North Benton County would be a good thing.
Yeah, one of the things that we're not talking about now, but I think maybe the county should explore is the undeveloped rural residential portions that if they were to build out, could trigger some of this sooner. So
Yeah.
I know a couple of folks have pointed out some purple areas on the map to me saying, this could be a neighborhood, this could be a neighborhood. If that were to happen, would that hasten some of the planning?
Yeah.
So I think there's a tug and pull here, and this is one of those opportunities, rare opportunities to actually get you all decision makers around the table and think about what we want the future to look like. So, and
Yeah.
Pat has been very good at reaching out to the school district. We had a very good pre-application conference.
Yeah.
Where we invited agencies to come to the table, and I thought that was really
And then when
helpful.
I met with them again as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were happy with the sites I talked about. Some of them were Benton County, just because you have some crucial sites right in the middle of town, which I can't develop for housing, and some of it's being unused. So there's a couple of sites that we brought up. Plus ODFW wants to come in our city, and they've got a massive open area that could only have a school. As far as in perpetuity, but a school can go. So just to let you know, we have looked and we know that we could make one of those sites work. We've definitely done our homework.
All right, at the planning commission hearing, one of the key topics of discussion was from members of the public who testified was traffic concerns. There's one local street, which Pat described earlier, which has a dead end that has residents particularly concerned. And there's more broad concerns about traffic levels in general on Highway 99 especially. Just for background, the county transportation system plan identifies improvements in this area. The UGB expansion wouldn't by itself trigger any of those improvements, and it doesn't trigger a traffic impact analysis. It's really the subsequent development proposals that would trigger that. So annexation and subdivision is when we start looking more specific. We more specific information at that point, and we can look at how will this specifically affect different transportation facilities, and then what is needed in order to offset that impact or improve safety. But this legislative process is an opportunity to consider the effect of urban growth boundary expansion on the area transportation system, to identify potential topics for further investigation down the road. So, similarly, natural hazards were brought up as a concern. Yeah.
Did anybody check that fault line, or did we just take the person's word for it?
The map that was presented came from our website. So
Okay.
yeah,
I
it's
just-
our mapping of
I
the
heard one
location. of
person
Corvallis
say
Fault.
that. and I was
Yeah.
like,
So yeah, I mean, the Corvallis Fault runs through
all cool.
North Crescent Valley area, through Crescent Valley High School, on up through here. It's uncertain how much of a hazard it is. Yeah, so it's something that's been brought up. You'll hear it again probably. Yeah, not something that we as staff recommended addressing at this time. Loss of farmland was also a concern brought up because the areas that are going to be added to the UGB through this process, if it is improved, are zoned EFU and have agricultural soils. But as we've talked about, there's a lot of constraints and not many options for where Adair Village can expand. It's all onto EFU land, one way or another. And the analysis of those particular properties showed that those are fairly impaired relative to other EFU properties in the area for long-term ag use.
Or we use the
Yeah.
term impaired. Can you expand on that?
Sure. So this is spelled out more fully in the findings document, but so so the configuration of the Waggle property is one factor. It's just not well configured for long-term agricultural use, and it's adjacent to urban density development. So this Cornelius property is at least 7 acres of it is in conservation easement because it's very wet. And what's left is pretty small for agricultural use, and I think not being used agriculturally right now. So I think it's overgrown.
It's never has been used. Yeah. Yeah, it would be hard, no, it wouldn't be worth, no farmer.
Hard to get to. Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, I mean, even if they allowed us to go across 99, we'd be taking out the Thorn Forest. So another, I mean, yeah, it was pretty easy for that type of analysis.
Right. Then just a couple more considerations that have come up in discussion. One is about development density within the current city and urban growth boundary. This was discussed by the County Planning Commission, pointing to one of the county comprehensive plan policies that for expanding an urban growth boundary, need to demonstrate that needs cannot reasonably be accommodated on land already inside the urban growth boundary. So there's a fair bit of discussion about that, the densities of there's a lot of assumptions that come into play in this type of analysis and decision making about what's the density of existing development, what's it zoned for, what's undeveloped land zoned for, what's future land going to be planned for and zoned for, how do wetlands and infrastructure and all of that factor into what actually gets built in terms of density. And so again, as we discussed earlier, the Planning Commission majority determined that the policy has been met, that a reasonable amount of flexibility needs to be built into those numbers. And so that was what their decision was based on. So this was a reasonable density within the existing city. And that's the same for number 10 about how closely should those calculations match up between the.
Yeah, and on both of those, you're gonna hear Deals and D's gonna give a 5-minute speech until say Adair has been remarkable for a city our size in both those categories. And they agree with us and support this whole part. But they are very impressed with what we've done over a city our size for these two issues.
And okay, so that completes our topics that we wanted to make sure were on your radar because they've come up one way or another. So again, in summary, public hearing on December 6th. We'll be getting you full materials ahead of that time to expect testimony, and you can deliberate at that time, at the close of the public hearing at that date, or you can continue to a future date. Planning Commission's both recommended approval. We've got extensive findings supporting that recommendation. There are several issues to consider as we've talked through this evening, and we're open to questions either now or if they come up in the middle of the night, you can send us an email. Please don't call.
Well, you can call here.
And Pat, the city council has invited the board to join them for a joint
Yes. Yeah.
meeting of
Yeah,
6.
on the 6th, yeah. And so you just stop the meeting, basically, we'd open our meeting in council, and then after the council decision's made, the mayor would close our meeting. And then you would open your meeting and your deliberation, so deliberation would be separate.
And that won't be held here, is that correct?
School.
Are we doing, yeah, where did we put the
That's what it
minutes?
says on
Yeah.
the-
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, yeah.
I think we're
I
shooting-
just want to make sure that we do what they Greg and Pat put this out. I hadn't seen it. So I just want to make sure we're at the right place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other folks are handling location.
Okay.
I just show up where they tell me.
I'm gonna make sure, and we will make sure you guys are at the right place.
So in terms of deliberations, thank you for explaining that it was sequential. And what I want to just talk about a little bit is what would cause us to continue to not deliver that night. Would it be if we hear something that really moves us to call something in question, or want to take it testimony, or just to deliberate longer?
It would be just because you three decided that, or they did, it would be your decision. Yeah,
Yeah, it could be that there's testimony received at that meeting that you want to consider further. Could be that it's a long meeting and you just want.
Let's say 60 people show up and I'll get 3 minutes to talk, you know.
But certainly can make a decision that night.
And from a procedural standpoint, this will require Benton County to adopt an ordinance which requires a second reading anyway. So I think we were thinking that we didn't want to assume
Prejudge, yeah.
or prejudge your intention or the feedback that you hear from the public. So we just left that door open as a possibility to continue if you feel it's appropriate.
Are there any timing considerations that the board should be aware of?
no. I know, see, it's a little different for me because my council voted unanimously to have me do this, so we are gonna have something prepared. So, you know, for us, I mean, yeah, we really want to do it in the time frame while, you know, the elections are things changing in January. Right now, there's a lot of support for housing. 1,000 Friends housing needs and the state have all supported us, so we want to keep that support. That's kind of important to us, but that does not mean you have to do something. But that's where the city's coming from, is that those are things that we're thinking about. So.
Oh, this is exciting.
We're just getting, we're just getting going.
Yeah, that's right.
We were in an all-day meeting.
Yeah,
Oh,
I heard
wow.
you guys were. Pat, I will say that this development has a bike lane at least from Riles to Crane Lane. It'll be a start of your bike lane for Riles. As far as my city runs, I'll have a bike lane.
And talking to Rick, what else is going on in the neighborhood? Early on, you mentioned connections to the surrounding communities.
Yeah.
That I think is important. Bike, transit. They've been talking about long enough, I've lost the timetable. I know there is transit service around us to here.
It's actually about 4 times a day.
Okay.
Saturday, yeah.
And at some point next year, 99W from Bengal to Junction City.
Oh, wow.
ODOT's good with it. Like I say, we've been talking about it long enough. Exactly sure when that's rolling down the road. And so that would have at least a bus or two within. But the idea is to
Yeah.
Corvallis has a great transit system for the city that size, but it's good it gets this far. Extending what's already there. So talking about as someday we'll have fun. Playing. Sections, actually have funding. And I think next is was the Rallis. Here, or the town forest. Both. And we should connect those two, and we've already got to start on that, because there's a lot of people that live in between. Instead of, well, you can go from Corvallis to Albany or Albany to Corvallis. No, I think of White Rail in Portland. In the 70s, it was downtown. 84. There were stores there. There's a system.
Well, our trails plan's done, we're just gonna adopt it, but then we throw it on the council until January. But then we did the TSP with Benton County, and then we got a grant for a whole trails plan. Everywhere we're developing, it's required by the developer to have bike lanes in on our main roads and drives. We did all the drives in the development, and we're gonna do, when San Diego develops, they're gonna have to do bike lane, sidewalks, and a trail on their property all the way around it. And so we have that implemented in our code now. And then when we adopt the trails plan, all of the trails take effect in any plan that we do. So, yeah, we've definitely done a good job of that.
Well, and makes sense on a couple of. Recreation.
Yeah, if you just build me a sky bridge, it'd be amazing.
Well, it's not, there's one across, Highway 22 there, not too far from Montreal, and I'm not know the history, but that's a 4-lane.
Well, there's the one on I-5, it's a footbridge down in Gina Gateway. Across the 6-7 lanes. Yeah, that's just a walking bike bridge.
South Corvallis for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, ours wouldn't be as many people, but it would be pretty neat to get to McDonald's. Just because that, but there, ODOT's more talking about doing a roundabout with big walk. Is what's been brought up, but the number they're talking about is pretty high for them to put that on priority list, the population.
I got a quick question. Sorry to derail from that
Yeah,
one more, but at the current development right now, they're waiting for that wetland piece of the bridge over it.
Yeah.
To go on to the next phase.
Yeah.
In the south side of that development, right there, it's on the southwest corner, there is, I think Greg mentioned that as like a wetland area, right?
Yeah,
As you drive by, it's full of those oaks that are in there, right?
Yeah, there's,
So does that mean, and I think I already know the answer to this, but I just want to clarify, there is no access to Crane Lane from there, correct?
there won't be from here to here, but there will be 2 dead end roads that I will advise the council to not approve the development without. So when we do the development proposals, when that's gonna come into play. But I will be sitting here going, do not approve anything that doesn't have a road that goes to Crane Lake. It won't be used right away, but if this builds out and this builds out in 5 years, not 20, and I'll be back to a UGB process, I can guarantee you in a couple of years, then we'll be going, these 2 properties just went up for sale because of what we're doing. And they came in and talked to me. So they are trying to sell them as development properties already. Both. of them. So we will be, that's when we'll be looking, but yes, we can cross these with the bridge. But it was,
What is Crane Lane? Is it, I mean, is it
it's actually,
a private road?
it's a private road right now, but it's actually, and Ron is on the phone. Ron spent a lot of money making sure he actually does own things.
So can Crane Lane be part of?
It would be later. It won't, again, those are later conversations.
Yeah, I don't want to do the egg chicken.
But we're
too
going,
far.
but
I'm just
again,
saying, we're planners, we're planning for this, how are we gonna have these artists?
well, and that will be in our plans, and I am paying attention to that, and that's why I'll have recommendations in the development proposals. And that's what we did with this last development. I mean, we put all the trails, the bridges, all the things in place for further development, because we actually didn't do that kind of stuff in the north section very well. We'd have to take houses out and stuff.
We meaning our predecessors. but
Yes, yes, the city, I wasn't gonna name names. But
Be quick.
they probably had already been built to Crane Lane if that, if those people were still here. It was probably
We've
built.
been insistent on connectivity with the growth, not without forcing things out on the 99 to get to the, like the envisioned downtown.
Yeah, there's some poor planning, and well, you can see that all over. And, it's so hard to fix now that it's been done. So,
The road, about the baseball diamond is so important to us.
yeah,
That's
that's.
everyone in the south, they have 4 more options. to get on that.
Yeah, it really spreads that out. The current situation is frustrating, but like you say, I'm pleased to hear that, yeah, I think now they know, and we're actually, I have to say, starting to work with them. It's really good. This email was good for both parties. And so I'm excited to see that road.
Oh. Along those lines, that you mentioned roundabout potential, where would that?
It's just been talked about, like in the TSP, it was talked about, and then ODOT side of the table when we did the TSP. And they just brought it up. They said lights are causing more accidents. They're finding out now, and the Sisters roundabout really worked out well. It was just brought up, but the population they were talking about that would require that big roundabout was like 10,000. And so I don't, I know you're gonna hear people complain about 99, and we will talk about it, but what really will happen on 99, probably if all of this development happened, would be a turn lane going on the roads. That would be what would happen now.
What I was thinking is, you mentioned 4 outlets to 99.
Yeah.
Roundabout. But
Cut that down.
use that as the safest. Way.
Yeah, it would. It would definitely, if that's, like I said, that's the cost, the project cost of that. I mean, I've sat in a lot of transportation meetings, a lot in the last few years. I mean, look what it took for even 20. I mean, even for them to do this project, and how many deaths and how many issues for ODOT to take that seriously. And then you've got the projects in Corvallis. And we're talking, even if we put, this is total homes in both these developments, maybe 400. And that's about 1,000 people. 12, it's about 1,400 people. So it gets us right to our population, but it's, like Albany did 200 homes just for in North Albany. That was nothing, and so it's not as big as impact as people think. Like, and that's one of the reasons big cities have to do so much more, is because like Portland, when they do EGB, they're talking about 10,000 homes at one time. Albany's talking about 1,000 when they talk about it. So that's why those requirements are so reduced.
And not everyone in our developments will get on.
No, a lot of people go to Albany.
Salem.
Yeah, we have a really mixed, diverse, a lot of people that work at Western, a lot of people that work in Salem, and actually very highly educated. We're one of the highest educated populations in the state by studies. And we have one of the highest house and median incomes right now, but that's because, like I said, it'd be hard to do that. But we have plans for apartment buildings and stuff, and to get to there, it's just, like I said, we've got to get to that point.
Do you have studies on where people go to work?
I don't, just me, I've been here 12 years and I talk to everybody. I know a lot of people. So I know quite a few. There's a lot of it's Corvallis, but a lot of it is Albany. We have several people that work at Western. Then we have like 6 police officers from the state. And then there's just a lot of, and then Salem, there's quite a few people that live here from Salem.
What I learned recently, going to a chamber meeting along with listening to the regional economist, was that what they're using is the advanced tax information, and they can, based on that, they can tell where people are working and where they live.
Oh, wow.
And putting together these commuting patterns, and so the commuting data is it's gotten better and better. So I think that if requested, at some point, we can do some of these analyses at the county. Get a better sense of it.
That'd be neat. I mean, I can tell you right now that it's 20.
Yeah.
I pay 20 and then, I
Yeah,
mean, it's crazy.
yeah.
20 and between Corvallis and all, and it's people working in Corvallis, living in Albany, and living in Albany, working in Corvallis. It's insane.
Philomath is insane. Learning that more people that live in Philomath work outside of Philomath than work in Philomath. The jobs in Philomath are actually held by people who live outside Philomath.
Yes.
And
Well,
it's just-
Corvallis is huge that way. A lot of Corvallis is downtown. I did know Corvallis, though, so a lot of Corvallis is downtown, like restaurants, bars, all of them. Nobody, well, to tell you the truth, I live in Benton County. I mean, right now, it's insane to live in Corvallis. I looked for 5 years and the property I bought was $400,000 less. But- So it's try hard to work a lower level job and work and live. in it.
Pat, I heard you mentioned earlier something about the ODF and W property.
Yes.
I apologize if I missed that. Is that included in the?
It's not in this UGB, but it will be. So it's that U-shaped property. Here, yeah, Greg Lee show. It's, yeah, that's the ODF. So it's like we're gonna build a Pac-Man right now. Without the mouth. And so that will be talked about, but we didn't want to, it's a way different UGB process. And so we didn't want to really confuse things with this one. Because that's a parks in perpetuity and it's a federal thing that's put on it, so it can't be built. So that'll be a much smaller process to go through. I mean, we'll still have to do it, but I don't have to do an 86-page findings document to do that.
Okay, so you do have plans to?
Yeah, I want to, Darren and I've talked about it, and then also I've talked to it with the state too, because, you know, the ODF and W, I know they don't want to, but the county and the city can do that anyway. And we serve them with sewer, which is only because they're a state agency that that's been allowed. I don't even know if anybody knows that. That they have sewer. Hey, no, this is great. Tell me you're gonna pull it if they don't come in the city. I'm happy with that. Yes,
Yeah.
it was. And that's why Camp Adair was so different, you know, the way we don't fit in a lot of those, you know, like our water systems in Albany almost, you know, and so we're a lot different than most places.
So what's the timeline that you're thinking for that?
I'd like to start next year on doing that.
And maybe it won't take as long as the last person who did the process.
Well, this would just be UGB because we wouldn't do anything with Parks and Perpetuity.
Or you just leave that overlay.
Yeah, we want that as an asset to the community, and in the future, that could be a great location for a school. And it's just a huge amenity to us for trails and things like that, so.
My understanding is ODFW doesn't really want the liability of the lake.
They don't.
But everybody in their village uses it, so why don't we?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so this just, I don't know, they have new management now, so I don't know them as well. But they came to me when Stadium Christian was talking, they really don't want it when the houses are butted up against it. The lake, they want to keep just their offices. And but the city, we have other exemptions they don't have for liability, and so because I forgot, they were telling me they work it, and so they're responsible for more things, where if it's just a public piece in the city, and then we aren't as liable as
Recreational.
something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah. So I don't remember the time, but yeah, so they were interested in that, but I'd like to just get it done, get it in the city. It would have solved this road issue 2-4 years ago, because we would have just said, we're putting a road in, you know, but since it's county and it's actually, it's parks in perpetuity, but it's zoned farmland. So it's got the farmland requirements from the county, and then it's got the federal requirements on it, and so it's a nightmare for us, because like I said, we would have just put the road right, you know, 20 feet, all we need is 20 feet of the baseball field, but we can, didn't make that happen. So it cost us having 200 homes right now. I mean, it did. We had developers when Callaway Creek was gonna be built, that were gonna build that. I mean, there was no question. So we missed out on that, but that's all right.
The plan is to add it into the
Yes.
boundary, but just have a separate process because that will be easier.
Yeah, and it's wouldn't confuse things because it is a different process. And talking with Patrick Weingart, he's our state representative that I've been working with on it. And he was the one that ultimately just said, hey, we'll do this later, it'll be a lot easier. And my council all wants it, so I know I'll be working.
I encourage you guys to discuss it in your council meetings before. I
Yes.
just wasn't sure about it.
Yeah, no, it's just get through some of what we're doing.
Thank you. So we get another.
Yeah, yeah, yes, you should see it. We have 3 Matts, because our engineers is Matt, our public works is Matt. And so one meeting, we had 4 Pats or Patricks and 3 Matts. In one meeting. It was interesting. Yeah, it was really interesting.
And I wasn't there.
And you weren't. And you weren't. There's 3 of us. There's 3 of us right now in this meeting. It's your middle name. That's funny. So yes, Patrick Weingart will be at the commissioners meeting because he's going to speak on behalf of this.
Only one Dawson. Only one Dawson.
Yeah. No, I would, and we'll talk, but I would encourage the county to give them the addendum. You know, that's gonna give them everything we, answered to that was a complaint from citizens. So they have some time to ponder that and ask more. And then I gave the council the last, it's tailored for the planning commission, but I gave it to my council just because if they are gonna try and struggle through it, then they have a month. So, we could get that to you guys pretty quickly. So,
Yeah, to the full info.
yeah, I mean, because like I said, it doesn't, you're literally talking about changing 3 pages to properly address you. So I think
I want it changed.
Yeah.
I want to change.
Right.
I want to say commissioners.
Well, I've been through a prior UGB here in Adair Village, and I have to say that this has gone, the county, the relationship and the way it's been handled has been quite smooth and not transparent, but very upfront, I guess, what everybody was trying to accomplish, and so that's been, it's nice to see that. So,
Yeah.
Thank you for all the work put into it to make it happen that way.
Yeah, I agree. Man, with me kicking and screaming a couple times. They put up with me and the county has really stepped up in this process and helped me out a lot. I'm not quiet and I was hard on people, so I appreciate it. I really do. All the work that's gone into this and letting me get mad once in a while. So I like to get things done.
Happens to the best of us.
It does. But this is important to us and something I've worked hard for a long time, so passionate about it.
Well, it's a pretty exciting vision.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. That's the whole reason I'm here. It's 'cause most city managers don't stay in cities very long. And with what the opportunities this city's given me, I could have left a lot of times, but nowhere else are you going to build a community and be a part of it like I do. So, very neat.
So we don't let them have everything at once, we spread it out.
They did.
Plan.
Yeah, one of the most difficult questions I ever received from Pat was when he said, what do you want downtown to look like? And we're talking about, I continually think about that. I'm still kind of like, what does that look like? But when you start looking about what a downtown can look like here, and I kind of walking down this and that, I'm kind of envisioning buildings up before me. It's amazing to think about all the different things that have to happen before you ever think about the downtown. And we're talking about chicken egg, which one comes first, and then you're like, well, which version of which egg, and which version is that? I mean, there's so many things, and it's just fun to be able to see a process unfold before us in our time. Despite what everyone's seen 20 years ago on this and that, whatever was planned, so on and so forth. I know that there's studies and all these things out there that say this is this and this and this. Fortunately, I am one of the simpler ones that says, we need houses, we need more houses. Where can we go that way? This makes sense to me. It's a very simplistic way of how I think, but I mean, it's what we all are concluding to the same, of course. That's why we need these studies to be able to confirm my oversimplistic thinking. But they will generally reach the same conclusion. So it's very, very exciting to be able to be part of and to be able to watch Pat take this thing and kind of move it along. It's been interesting and fun. And I want things to go fast. I want things to go, of course. We're kind of built the same way of that. There's processes, and I'm like, no, just go, let's go, let's get it done, let's go. And it's not always that simple, but it is fun to see. So thank you guys for allowing for all this stuff to happen, knowing that there is this need and allowing this to do it. It's very, very cool to see, just as a novice. So.
And can I just say that I know our community development department is very busy, all the different aspects of things that they handle. So I'm just very happy that they've been able to step up and help with this process.
Well,
Yeah.
the guy on the screen, Pat Deppa, has done
Pat.
huge amount of work on this. So kudos to Pat.
I think it was just a brilliant idea back when.
Yeah.
Yeah, that worked out well.
Right.
Just gonna say, I appreciate the history and what the developer was doing that years ago, and just it'll all work out.
Yeah.
Versus, where's the road going? Get around our community, access the highway. I appreciate this, we need housing, but more thoughtful process. So that 20 years from now, 15 years from now, did a pretty good job of thinking about that.
We even insisted that there were more cul-de-sacs. Fire department didn't like that aspect a lot, but cul-de-sacs create community within community. It's not a through road, and people on those cul-de-sacs here in town, we've learned over time, tend to become more connected with each other. And so we actually pushed for that. And
Yeah,
it's worked
don't
out.
cringe right there.
Yeah.
You too. It all of us, I always say it's them, it's planning now shows, but Bill's been right.
I mean,
There's pros
the
and cons.
community is just really
They really,
taken to
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah, they have.
I-
it definitely has. And I mean, you see they're tighter knit in those areas for sure. We've definitely seen that. Yeah, no, it's been neat. And yeah, I want to be here. I don't want the next city manager cursing my name because I've definitely cursed the last one. So that's what I tell myself. I'm like, I don't want to be cursed when I'm not. You know, so, well, this being my ladies. Yeah, thank you.
Well, any other questions or information you'd want before the hearing?
Yeah,
Yeah. that's
yeah,
fine.
and you guys can email me too if you have any just general questions about the community or something you want to know that we're doing or we're not doing. Feel free in that time to reach out to me.
Thank you. This is
Thanks,
kind of an efficient process to do it in parallel, not in parallel, jointly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so thank you for that as well.
It actually, when we were thinking about doing stuff, this is gonna be a lot of our time.
Yeah, right. That's true. Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, no, it's good. The interchange is
yeah.
good. It's helpful.
Hopefully they understand the vision. Past, not have to go back and forth writing.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. All right.
We're adjourned.
There we go.
You're waiting for
That's
that, right?
us.